Hey, what's up, YouTube? I'm creating this video to talk about an experience I had a long time ago. I'm gonna say it was about like maybe 4 or 5 years ago when I did some shrooms. It was my second time doing shrooms, I believe, and and I've done psychedelics about I think I want to say about 17 times in my life. Most of the time it was shrooms, but I'd done acid probably about 3 4 times. And out of the 17 times I did this stuff, only one time was my experience positive. All the rest of them were bad trips, and where I saw, where I thought some wicked shit was gonna happen to me, and I was seeing some weird shit, and but they say your worst trips are your best teachers, because each time that trip was over, I was a little bit more grateful for life afterwards, because I realized just how bad I could have it if um if I would have never made it through those trips. But anyways, this experience took place over at my cousin's house, and it was me, my cousin, and somebody we knew that was more of my cousin's friend than it was of mine. But but I saw my but I saw my cousin and his friend turn into beasts, creatures with fucking fangs. And what it reminded me of was the Rakshasas from Hindu mythology. I don't know how to pronounce them. Rakshasas. And what Rakshasas are Rakshasas were a populous race. They were both good and evil Rakshasas, and as warriors they fought alongside the armies of both good and evil. They were powerful warriors, expert magicians, and illusionists as shape changers. They could assume different physical forms. As illusionists, they were capable of creating appearances which were real to those who believed in them, or failed to dispel them. So, as I mentioned before, like there's three forms of shape shifting. You got telepathic shape shifting. You got biokinesis, to where you can change your DNA with psychic intent alone, psychic willpower. Um, and they say that's the most dangerous form of shape shifting. If you don't know what you're doing, you don't have much control over your mind. You could end up fucking up your DNA in the process, and you could end up killing yourself, or making making yourself retarded, or you could come out deformed as hell. So, but then there's also a third type, is astral shape shifting. So if you have your psychic senses opened, and you could see spirits and all that, because I think a lot of these spirits, like these alien spirits, they're here. Um, they're here via spirit, but their bodies are physically elsewhere. And you'll see a lot of animals on the astral too. And I think, I think each time us human beings or animals go to sleep, we leave our bodies at will and we traverse the astral. So each one of these astral entities probably have physical bodies elsewhere in the world, or in the known universe. And who knows, if they're, I mean, who knows exactly, where they come from, but um but I think each one of these astral entities, animal or not, they have that silver cord, because they talk about the silver cord being attached to one's astral body when they do leave their bodies and go to the astral. I don't think one can experience the astral without having a body and a brain, for your spirit to tie into. That's also the reason why I think that when you die, that your body, your spirit needs to find, or your soul needs to reincarnate into another body as soon as possible, because without a body, the spirit, the soul, it can't sustain itself. So it needs to I mean, that's another reason why I don't believe in ghosts. I mean, I believe in ghosts in the sense that that they're spirits, but they have to have a body, to operate from. Um, some of these ghosts, I think, are also like holograms, or spiritual, astral holograms. So when a person dies, I think some of them, like their shell is left behind on the astral. Like like that would explain the reason why when people see ghosts, they always tend to be just a shell walking around like a robot. It's like they don't see you, they don't there's nothing. It's like nobody. It's like the car's working, but the engine is like like it's not right. It's there's like nobody's inside the car. But anyways, yeah, I was chilling at my cousin's house, and I questioned just how much this person is my cousin, because I sometimes wonder if I'm not in some alien hologram or some sort of holodeck like you would see from Star Trek, but there ain't no technology running this holodeck. It's just one big telepathic illusion being put into my mind by aliens that are around me at all times. And I see this same kind of theme play out in a bunch of movies, like Dark City for one. The movie Dark City is about humans being used by a species of alien, and their whole entire world is just some illusion that's created by alien minds, and they're there to be exploited. These aliens exploit them in some way. I can't remember, but they also hijack their bodies too. They're like spider-like aliens that once a human being dies, these human beings are buried at a cemetery or some shit, and then these aliens, they dig up these bodies and then use them as host bodies. So I think that I think there's symbolism behind this as well, because host bodies, they say host bodies have no souls. They're dead. They're dead inside. So these aliens, when they do hijack a human body, because a human body has to be born with a soul, so they have to dig this soul out. They have to remove it somehow. And drugs, like hard drugs like meth or fucking heroin and shit like that, is one way you can go about it. I'm not too sure about heroin, but I do know meth is one way they can go about it. I don't, and in some cases maybe they take people to these alien bases that are disguised as underground military bases and shit. And then they do the hosting process down there with some of these people. I definitely think that may apply with celebrities and politicians, according to host bodies like Donald Marshall, which I think Donald Marshall is one of these host bodies. I mean, he's Jewish, so he was always a liar to begin with when he first came out talking about the cloning centers and all that. But I also think he's telling the truth in a lot of shit about how things are done at these cloning centers, and I do believe that there is cloning centers too, but anyways, but yeah, he talks about people being turned into aliens down in these he talks about aliens hijacking these bodies down in these military bases and all that. And I know Donald Marshall ain't completely full of shit either, because he's talking to B-list celebrities too, like fucking Tila Tequila. I'm not sure if she's a C-list or B-lister, but I know Bob is, the rapper Bob, and Donald Marshall actually had a fucking conversation with him via webcam with Bob. A supposed nobody like Donald Marshall is talking to fucking celebrities. So that should give people, a big clue that Donald Marshall is somewhat of the real deal. And there's even been emails exposed that are talking about the cloning centers between Tila Tequila and Donald Marshall. So it's, if Donald Marshall is making this shit up, then he's making this shit up with celebrities. that he's also talking to too. So but but anyways, going back onto my story, I sometimes wonder if I'm not in just one big illusion because nobody thinks like me, nobody believes the same shit I believe. I've rarely ran into. I mean, I'm trying to remember if there has been anybody that has been through, seemingly like the same situation as I'm going through, and and I want to say I remember meeting a couple people too. One of the people was somebody I used to talk to from the schizophrenia forums. That they believed that they were like in some Truman show, and I had a lot in common with this person about what he was going through and shit like that too. But me and him talked for about a few days, and then we stopped talking for some reason, and completely went our separate ways, and I never heard from him again. But but I question whether or not he was human either, because he didn't seem to share the same beliefs I did. But but anyways though, going on, I went to my cousin's house. I wanted to get some shrooms, like from his neighbor, because his neighbor had the hookup, and my cousin, he's a Native American, part black, and then our friend, he's Native American, and him and my cousin, they both claim a gang. It's called Gangster Disciple, and I'm not sure how. I mean, it's kind of like these gangs here in Rapid City are more so are pretty much a joke. I mean, it's nothing like you would see in the big cities and shit like that. But these people would still beat your ass if the opportunity came about, and if they saw you waving a bunch of money in front of their faces, and they didn't know you all that well, they would knock you out and take that money. I've seen them do shit like that a lot I wouldn't say a lot, but I saw it when I would hang out with them, but anyways though, anyways, I was chilling at my cousin's house, and it was me and him and his friend down in the basement, and he got me a bunch of shrooms, like it was a bag, and it was filled with shrooms and all that. And I remember I started taking them, and it was my I was new to the whole shroom thing, so I didn't really know how many I had to take for it to finally kick in, because I thought it would be like 5 minutes and then I'd start tripping, but come to find out, it was around like 30 minutes before they actually do kick in. So I think I took quite a bit, but I took like a handful and ate them all up, and then we were sitting there inside his basement, and we were listening to music, and my cousin, he's the joking type. He likes to always, bust jokes on people and kind of like, and fucking but he's not so much offensive when he does it, but he's pretty funny when he does it too. So, he was sitting there clowning on me and the other homie, and I was sitting there, and we were laughing and all that, and I remember the music was playing, and it was Bone Thugs and Harmony, and I remember I started listening to Busy Bone's verse, and he just sounded straight evil, like he sounded like a devil himself, like when I started really paying attention to the words. First before I started listening to him, I remember I was feeling the spirit on me, and then I was like, and then it like took shape of like a gray alien, like a gray alien with big black eyes, and it had like palish blue skin, but it was a different type of gray alien, because I saw gray aliens in the past a long time ago, but they were short, they wore black uniforms, and they stood about 4 feet tall. They were like they were as tall as your typical midget. But they weren't built like a midget. I mean, they were built like a human being. Like they had normal bodies and shit. They weren't stout or anything like that. And but they wore black uniforms, and they were skinny, and they had and they had skin just like a white person's skin, and the skin, I was seeing them so well, to the point to where like if you have like a white grandma or a white grandpa, and I do. I mean, I was raised on my mother's side of the family, which is my white side, and I wasn't raised on my father's side. But but if you've been around old white people, then you'd be able to see that if you look at their skin, sometimes it'd be thin enough to where you can make out the veins and shit like that. And some of these gray aliens, their skin was just that tight to where, if you look close enough, you can make out the veins that was running through their heads and neck and shit. And so, I knew what I was looking at was real. And that's a whole different story in itself, though. But yeah, I was down in this basement and fucking and I felt this alien like inside me, like it was like inside my body. And then that's when the bad trip like started, like pretty much right after that. I was listening there was a Bone Thugs and Harmony song playing at the moment, and I remember it was Busy Bone's verse, and he just sounded like he was straight evil, like he was like from some hell dimension or some shit. And then I was listening to his, and I was like, damn, that's some scary shit. And then I fucking started and I started paying attention to my cousin and his friend. And I remember I started reading his energy field, and I just felt this very ancient energy, and this very high intellect, this very high IQ. He would just it wasn't my cousin. It wasn't even a human being that was sitting in front of me. And then I started realizing, the more I was reading into him and the other guy, I started realizing that this whole situation in front of me was an act, and they were telepathically reading my mind, and they were fucking, and all of it was just an act for me. And then when I started looking at their faces, I started seeing fangs protrude down their mouths, like fucking like vampire fangs. But I didn't feel like these were exactly vampire fangs. They felt like animals, beastly like aliens. There was a very high intellect about them, and there was a very high wisdom, and there was a very high and they felt very ancient. But at the same time, they were like beasts. They were like fucking. They took on the appearance of these fucking monsters, and I got the sense almost that's what they really looked like, and just what I was seeing them as far as like human goes, was an illusion that was telepathically being put inside my head. And when I started realizing this, the way these two reacted, I'll never forget. I'll never forget, man. But they knew I was reading. They knew I was seeing past the veil. They knew I was seeing past whatever illusion they were putting forth. The look on their eyes, it was like fear, and like, they were ready to kill me. Like they wanted to scare me so I wouldn't stop peering through the veil. And I'll never forget my cousin's his face when he looked at me, and it was like this, like he was like, oh shit. It was like this look of like, I'm ready, but I don't want to do this. Like, this human is waking up. What should we do? And then he puts on this, but it wasn't like he wasn't blatantly scared. It was like they were ready, at least, or they were acting like it. They were ready to kill me, but at the same time there was fear behind their eyes. But at the same time they were like, they were ready to do what they had to do if I woke up. And I remember him and his friend, they put on black coats, like, because my cousin, he has a black coat, and I remember his friend was wearing a black shirt or something like that. And I don't know if the color black has anything to do with anything that was at hand of the situation, or if it was just like a psychological scare tactic. I don't know, but I remember he put on his black coat, and they were looking at me like they were getting ready for like, I don't know, and I remember his friend stood up and he started like, how when somebody's about to get into a fight, they get up and they stretch and they start moving around their neck, like cracking it. That's what he was doing. And I remember at the moment, like, I was like, it's weird because when you take a shitload of shrooms, it's like you're not really scared. I don't know, like, it was weird in that situation because I wasn't really scared of getting killed or eaten alive, but at the same time, there's like a deep rooted fear, like, okay, something amazing is fucking happening right in front of my face, and possibly something that is life threatening, but at the same time I'm not really scared, but I'm just tripping out, and I just, and I just felt like, I don't know if I was just so scared to the point where I wasn't scared, if that makes sense, or what, but I just kind of got up and I was just like, okay, I gotta go. I just said that to them. I gotta leave. I gotta go. And I remember I fucking walked away, and fucking and they were just kind of like, I don't know what they were thinking at the moment or what, but I remember one of them said, "Oh, you forgot your lighter," or something like that, and he handed me my lighter, and as I was walking up the stairs into the living room, because my cousin, he has a girlfriend and a kid, and I remember his girlfriend looked at me, and she looked at me like I was just like I don't know, I think she was one of the shapeshifters herself. But I remember I slipped, and I almost fainted inside their living room, and they came upstairs, and I remember right when I was about to fall, like my cousin's friend, he grabbed me. He's like, whoa, whoa, and they helped me up. And then I remember, and they're like, damn, man, you sure you could drive home? And I was like, dude, I can do it. I know I can. And they're like, well, we have a bed upstairs. You could sleep up there. And in the back of my head, there's like, no way in hell am I gonna go up in that bed and then wait for these fuckers to come up there and then like get me. So I said, no, I'm fine. So I got in my car and I fucking drove high as fuck on shrooms all the way on the other end of town through it was nighttime, so there wasn't much traffic or cars or anywhere, but thinking about it, looking back at that situation, I can't believe, I was able to do it without getting picked up or getting into a car wreck, because I was tripping balls. And I got to my bro's house, and I told him straight up that I did a shitload of shrooms and I'm tripping out and I don't know what to do, and I'm having a panic attack and all that. And at the end of the night, he ended up driving me to my house, because my house is it was way outside of town, and he drove me all the way to my house. And I remember right when I was getting out of his car, I saw him shapeshift too, and he and like he telepathically did something and read my mind, and it was like a message to, like, he wanted to eat me, and he did the whole tongue flickering too, like he like, the tongue came up across his lips and all that, and fucking and I'll never forget that moment either. But yeah, I know what I saw that night. I mean that day down in my cousin's basement, and I knew those fuckers weren't human, and I had an experience just like that with my mother once too. And that's a whole different story in itself, but the experience I had with her, I was sober. I was sober, no drugs whatsoever, and I was sober, and I had that, and I woke up in the middle of the night inside her house in her apartment, and I saw through the veil, because I was like, because sometimes when you wake up and you're like in that half asleep, half awake state, you're kind of like in that trance state, and sometimes psychic shit happens when you're in this state of mind, and then sometimes you're able to peer through the veil, and you're able to see things that weren't quote unquote meant for you, and I saw her. And she saw me, and she realized that I was seeing her too, and she like, she hid around the corner, or I mean, like I said, that's a whole different story in itself, and maybe I'll tell it one of these days, but I knew she wasn't human when I was having that experience, and she is an Rh negative blood type, and she's right-handed and left-handed, so so I think that those are signs right there, and I do know she's also bisexual. I know she's been with men and women. So, but anyways, and they say the reptilian soul is they have both their female and male side empowered. This is the reason why on movies like Enemy Mine, they're depicted as both female and male. This is the reason why a lot of reptilians are gay and molest kids and fucking and shit like that. But yeah, so, And I think the reason why they go for kids is because kids, they have the most life force, behind them. It's not like they're. I don't think they look at it in kind of like a lust point of view, but they look at it like, how much life force can we get out of this person. But anyways, yeah, that's my experience with. I'm pretty sure that's what they were. Rakshasas, and you could call them vampires, you could call them reptilian shapeshifters, but I think that's what they are, and they're spoken about in Hindu lore, Vedic. I mean, fucking all around the world, man. And we got these beings that used to, mingle around with humanity and all that are able to shapeshift, and and I'm sure if you dig deep into some, I mean, if you dig deep into this, I'm pretty sure these same beings probably used to live among humanity physically. I mean, well, of course, I mean, they're around us physically, but just how physical do they get with us? Do they even breed with us? Giving birth to half human, half vampire.